just outside Montana's Glacier National Park at the height of the Cold War. Missile launch officer Captain Robert Salas is in charge of 10 nuclear weapons. In the dead of night, he receives an alarming phone call from a guard.
Well, you can hear the fear in his voice. And he's saying, "Sir, I'm looking out the front window, and there's a glowing object just hovering there." It felt like we were under siege.
This is National Park: Secrets and Legends. Glacier National Park in northwestern Montana. More than 1 million acres of majestic mountains, carved out by the colossal retreat of the last ice age. It's often called the crown of the continent. But some believe this imposing landscape hides some of the century's most baffling mysteries. March 1967, Launch Officer Robert Salas is on duty in the Underground Missile Control Center, just outside the park, when one of the guards protecting the base makes an urgent call.
He's screaming into the phone. He's agitated, he's fearful, and he's saying, "Sir, I'm looking out at the front gate, and there's a glowing object just hovering there."
The U.S. Air Force has 1,000 nuclear missiles in underground silos, with enough power to destroy every living thing on Earth. The base is heavily guarded against intruders.
He said that he had all the guards out there with their weapons, and he wanted me to tell him what to do. He was waiting my orders, so I just told him, "Don't let anything inside the front gate. Use force if you have to, keep everything out." It felt like we were under siege.
It's the height of the Cold War. The United States and Soviet Union are engaged in a deadly standoff. If the missiles go off, it could trigger a third world war.
We had at least 150 of these weapons. They had a range of 6,000–7,000 miles, so they could hit many targets. So these weapons were ready to go.
A few seconds after the strange lights appear, the ultra-secure launch system is breached.
A lot of bells and whistles inside the capsule. We had lights come on, and our people even lost radio contact.
Someone or something has penetrated the launch area. The base is in lockdown, knowing that if the missiles launch, nuclear holocaust is a near certainty.
It was a very frightening experience. And of course, we were concerned because we didn't know what had happened.
At the brink of destruction, the inexplicable happens.
We had lights come on, and in sequence, we had all 10 of our missiles shut down. They were unlaunchable, disabled.
The missile system is designed with the most advanced technology available. No one can imagine how it was overrun.
They'd have to get through 60 feet of earth and concrete, and then send a specific signal to shut down the missiles in this way. We didn't know whether or not we had been under some sort of a terrorist attack or what was going on.
Suspicions immediately fall on the Soviet Union, attempting to penetrate the U.S. air defense system. But could there be another explanation? Another event 2 months later, deep inside Glacier National Park, adds to the mystery. In May 1967, Dave Krogstad and 2 high school friends are on a camping trip in the park.
We got a late start that day. We got up to Cameron Lake, and it was dark. And we never bothered to set up a tent. We just went ahead and threw our sleeping bags out. Up there, there's no light pollution from anything. And that night, there was no moon, no clouds, just the perfect sky for looking at the stars. And that's where we saw what we saw.
Look at that. Look. Run. What's up, Dave?
We noticed a object or something off to our right to the west. Well, this was just a little bit brighter than a bright star. It would go zip across the sky and immediately stop. Then it would do a 90-degree turn and go zip again, same count, 1001, 1002, do a 90-degree turn to the left, and the zigzag pattern.
Don't even worry about it.
In my mind, we just saw a UFO.
Is what these young campers see connected to the encounter at the military base 2 months earlier?
There's a lot of things that people have seen, both military, civilian, and they don't talk about it as such. I know what I saw.
The answer to these mysterious sightings in Glacier National Park may lie in an old man's final words.
Back in the late 1990s, I was dating a woman, and her elderly father made a deathbed confession to me, claiming to have been one of Hitler's bodyguards. He told me some amazing stories.
Just outside Glacier National Park, Montana. Moments after a guard spots strange floating lights over a nuclear missile base, the weapons control system shuts down. Soon after, camping teenagers see similar lights in the same area. These are just 2 of dozens of sightings near the park, and many wonder why Glacier is a hotbed for UFO activity. The first clue to the mystery emerges some 30 years later when a man makes a confession to his daughter's boyfriend. He says his real name is Otto Skorzeny and that he was in Hitler's circle.
All right, Skorzeny handed me a shoebox full of 60 years worth of photographs, and he told me some amazing stories.
Many historians confirm that Otto Skorzeny went down in history as one of Hitler's most capable henchmen. Dr. Joseph Farrell has studied Nazi objectives after the war.
Otto Skorzeny was Adolf Hitler's favorite SS commando. This is the fellow that rescued Benito Mussolini, smuggled him out on an airplane. He was Hitler's go-to man.
In 1945, with Nazi Germany on the verge of defeat, some historical accounts say Hitler gives Skorzeny his most daunting assignment ever: the evacuation of elite Nazis from Europe.
We're not dealing just with a bunch of Nazis hiding out and trying to escape justice. They decide that Nazism, in order to survive the war and to have any hope of an eventual restoration of power, has to go underground.
It's known that Skorzeny helped senior Nazis get to places like Spain and Argentina. It's alleged he also chose Glacier National Park because its landscape appealed to Adolf Hitler himself.
He liked Glacier National Park because it reminded him of Austria, his old home up in the Alps. It reminded him of the good old days.
This controversial claim doesn't end there. It's also believed that Glacier National Park is also a repository for vast Nazi wealth.
Glacier National Park is where Otto Skorzeny hid all their stolen loot to help establish a Fourth Reich in America. According to Skorzeny, the Nazis are hiding billions of dollars of gold and silver stolen from the 6 million Jews that were murdered by the Nazis during the Holocaust.
Orion believes there is a practical reason Skorzeny was drawn to Glacier above all other locations on his list: the park's unparalleled rail access.
Glacier National Park was actually the first national park with a railroad access to it. So they were able to use the railroad access to basically bring the whole train right up to Glacier National Park with all his stolen gold and other Holocaust treasure.
It's alleged the park is hiding more than Nazi gold. A quiet lodge may be refuge for an even more shocking secret. Pam Schufert is an investigative journalist who has traveled the world for 17 years, researching secret government activities.
As a child growing up in Germany, I would go to the Bavarian Alps to a place called Lake Eibsee. Beautiful scenery, and the place that I have found in America identical to that is Lake McDonald Lodge on beautiful Lake McDonald in Glacier Park.
The lodge harkens back to the rustic opulence of the European Alps. Trophy heads adorn the walls, along with some unusual symbols that aren't easily explained.
I would sit there wondering, why are there these swastika-type symbols in Lake McDonald Lodge?
The answer is an allegation that overturns conventional history.
My right hand, I'm holding a cane that was given to me by Otto Skorzeny, and this cane was supposedly given to him by his boss, Adolf Hitler. According to what Skorzeny was telling me, Hitler actually lived in Glacier National Park at Lake McDonald in the VIP cabins. And he was a resident at the VIP cabins for many years. So that was where he lived most of his life after World War II in peace.
As unbelievable as the claim seems, Hitler's death has always been shrouded in controversy. History records that he shot himself on April 30th, 1945, at the Führer bunker in Berlin. But many believe it was a cleverly staged decoy.
According to Skorzeny, they shot a Hitler look-alike right between the eyes, poured some gasoline on this poor bastard, and they burned him.
Scientists recently lent credibility to this allegation. A 2009 DNA test on the skull believed to be Hitler's revealed that it in fact belonged to a woman under 40 years old.
Hitler never planned to commit suicide. That was all just a plan to confuse everybody and throw him off his trail.
Some believe that Hitler received multiple plastic surgeries before retiring to Glacier National Park under an alias.
He has a deformed, surgically altered left ear, and you can see that on the left profile of this gentleman sitting right there in the blue shirt and hat. So there's no doubt in my mind that is Adolf Hitler in 1997.
But how could Hitler and the Nazis evade detection for decades? A recent discovery may reveal a shocking clue.
We panicked, we freaked, we were filled with terror.
Montana's Glacier National Park is 1 million acres of remote and pristine beauty, one of the most majestic areas on the continent. But some contend that this vast wilderness is a secret Nazi refuge, hiding stolen wealth, and even Adolf Hitler himself, who evaded capture and lived out his days at Glacier. Some believe the railways leading into the park may offer a clue to this dark mystery.
My friend Marie McCullough was traveling with her friends, and they decided to come to Glacier National Park. She said, we wanted to go out one day and take beautiful pictures of the area, so we followed railroad tracks into the woods so we would not get lost.
The women come to a clearing and unexpectedly discover a strange scene. Over a dozen black boxcars parked on the tracks.
And they looked strangely out of place and rather sinister. So she said, we went to one boxcar whose door was open. We all looked inside and saw a shocking sight. There were shackles welded inside as if to hold people prisoners. We panicked, we freaked, we were filled with terror. We turned around, followed those tracks, headed to our host family's home, and she said, you never should have gone to that area. There are usually federal guards with rifles guarding that area. You could have been killed.
Are the prisoner boxcars, eerily reminiscent of concentration camp transports, somehow connected to the alleged Nazi presence in the park? And if so, why would U.S. federal guards be protecting them? One clue leads back to the height of the Cold War, when nuclear missile control officer Robert Salas is confronted with strange lights outside his base.
We had to report into our squadron commander's office right away. They wanted us to sign a non-disclosure statement saying that we would never talk about this.
Even though this was an unprecedented security breach, the Air Force command to sign a gag order was unexpected.
I didn't see any reason for that because we had above top secret clearance already. We had high security clearances. But they said that this was a specific incident that should never be talked about.
Salas believes the Air Force acted as it did because it couldn't risk any information leaking about a possible UFO incident.
The Air Force covered up the shutdowns because they didn't want to notify the public that, yes, this is a real phenomenon. Not only a real phenomenon, but one that has impacted our national security.
Some believe the gag order surrounding the missile incident is not the first government cover-up at Glacier, and it may be connected to one of the greatest conspiracies in history. The top secret project was called Operation Paperclip.
Operation Paperclip was the U.S. government's program to bring over Nazi scientists, engineers, and so on to this country after the war.
Historians have discovered that the U.S. government wanted to tap the Nazis for their advanced aircraft technology and needed to move fast so that it didn't fall into Soviet hands. Paperclip was a covert intelligence operation, so secret that it was even hidden from President Truman.
These Nazis were brought over, their records were sanitized, they were given a free ride.
But where could these Nazi scientists work in secret? Some believe the answer is a huge, advanced underground base, and that facility is at Glacier National Park.
It's literally an underground civilization. The American military took that idea and ran with it, big time.
Some allege the Nazi base at Glacier National Park is being used for more than just advanced aircraft.
People see metallic-looking flying discs flying around Glacier National Park, and there's a good reason for that.
Does Montana's Glacier National Park hide a secret base where top Nazi scientists were smuggled after the war? Is the park the last refuge for Adolf Hitler himself? Are mysterious UFOs seen over Glacier for decades somehow linked to its alleged Nazi connection? Some believe the startling answer may lie in advanced technology secretly developed by Nazi scientists at Glacier National Park.
I think that we do have some possibility of a Nazi flying saucer program. There is some evidence that the Nazis had flying saucer-shaped vehicles that were based on jet turbines by the end of World War II.
Allied pilots reported seeing Nazi flying saucers over Europe in the final year of the war. Are the disc-shaped objects seen over Glacier National Park a continuation of the Nazi project?
People see metallic-looking flying discs flying around Glacier National Park, and there's a good reason for that, because that's where they're storing them.
Some allege the U.S. government has kept this top-secret project hidden from the public since the 1950s.
The war's supposed to be over. These people are supposed to be defeated and gone, you know, no more problems. And to admit that you've got something Nazi flying around in our skies after the war, that's going to be a bit much.
How could a base large enough to create advanced flying saucers possibly be constructed at Glacier National Park without being discovered? There's evidence the Nazis had the capability to tunnel underground on a huge scale.
Having seen the blueprints of some of these facilities that were actually discovered and charted by the Allies after the war, these facilities were enormous. They were building rockets entirely underground. They were assembling jet aircraft, and in some cases, they were in the process of constructing underground runways for these things.
Some claim that after the construction of the secret base at Glacier National Park, the U.S. government adopted Nazi tunneling techniques for other underground operations, a legacy that still exists to this day.
In my research was a document from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that proposed hiding facilities, underground facilities, tunnels and such, inside of parks. There are patents in this country for tunnel boring machines that use nuclear plasma, quite literally, to melt their way through the rock.
These patents are with U.S. Air Force contractors who collaborated with the Nazis on the secret base at Glacier National Park. The remote mountains are ideal for large secret bases, but some researchers believe Glacier National Park offered even more to the Nazis, a natural force known as telluric currents, a type of energy that was long a Nazi obsession.
Telluric current is a natural phenomenon of a low frequency of electricity or electromagnetic power energy that runs through the terrain of the entire planet.
Telluric currents cross all continents and in some places act like a battery. One of those locations is believed to be Glacier National Park. This was vital for the Nazis because they were testing experimental propulsion systems that could be powered by these natural forces, and Glacier was an ideal place to do it. Glacier's vast wilderness has allegedly been a magnet for covert activities since the Second World War. And if the reports are true, Glacier ranks not only as one of North America's most stunning parks, but also its most sinister.
Do I think it's possible that Nazis continue to have some involvement in some very black research projects? Yeah, I do.
These things are very, very strange, but they're part of the deep mysteries of Glacier National Park.
The government has no right to keep this from the public because no matter what the fallout, we have the right to know the truth. And I strongly believe that.